Today, we're going to talk about how to make sure you're covered for all taxes involved in your business. So how do you make sure that no government agencies are going to be knocking at your door? Well, no one can guarantee that, and you should expect that it could happen to your business at some point, but that's okay. That's why you have to make sure that you have everything in order, so that when someone shows up unannounced from the state to look over your sales tax license, you're not freaked out and you can provide them with what they're looking for and send them on their way to bother your neighbor who's definitely not collecting and remitting sales tax. So there are two main things to think about. And first is the types of taxes that your business might be subject to and that you might be subject to because you own the business. But we'll discuss that further. But second, think about who is assessing the tax. For example, personal income taxes can be assessed at the federal, state, and local levels depending on where you live. And those usually require 3 separate payments and tax filings. Sales taxes in Philadelphia is another example. They have an extra 2% added on, in addition to the Pennsylvania sales tax rate of 6%. So that's an example of a state and local tax that you need to be considering. Luckily, the filing for both is done at the state level and then PA just worries about reimbursing the city. Your payroll taxes mimic the personal income tax filing, so there will be as few as one payroll tax agency involved if you live in a state with no state or local income tax. But you can have dozens of taxing authorities involved depending on how many states your employees work in and how many local taxing authorities you're dealing with. So just think of it not purely in the sense of just making sure you're paying someone sales tax or income tax, but ensuring that you're paying everyone that you are required to, from Uncle Sam down to your local borough. As resources, your accountant or tax preparer, your lawyer, and your bookkeeper are all great people to have in your corner to ask these questions to. The bookkeeper likely has experience with similar businesses, or at least in the same area as you're operating, so they'd be familiar with the various other types of taxes that businesses pay. The lawyer and accountant can tell you about any federal, state, or local taxes that you might be subject to. Asking both of those individuals independently would be a great idea. You can even ask them what kind of taxes they pay to make sure that you're not missing anything. Here are some common taxes paid by businesses and or business owners. Sales and use tax is a tax paid to the state, so depending on what you're selling and where you're located, you might have to collect tax at the time of the sale on behalf of the state and remit it to the state on behalf of your customers. Every time you open a new location or a new revenue stream, make sure you know whether or not you should be collecting sales tax on that. Ask other business owners in the area who are in the same industry. See if they're collecting it. But don't assume that their answer is the correct answer. You should always double check. You can even pick up the phone to the state and ask them. They'll want you to have the right answer so they don't have to harass you down the road. For example, Pennsylvania has Department of Revenue agents that walk around to businesses and ask them to show their sales tax license. But sales tax is really important, and it's not a tax on you, it's a tax on the customer. So just collect it if you're supposed to and pay it into the state. Personal income taxes. Now this affects everyone, even C Corp owners. Unless your business is taxed as a C corporation, your business income flows to your individual income tax return, and you pay tax on that income with the filing of Form 1040. So you will have this filing requirement every year. Within your personal income tax return are your ordinary income taxes and your self-employment taxes, which are taxes on the business income if you own a sole proprietorship, a single-member LLC, or a partnership. Business income taxes are only paid to the IRS if the business is set up as a C corporation. However, some state and local governments also have taxes on the business revenue or net income, regardless of your entity setup. So make sure you contact the township, school district, or area that you're operating in to ensure that you understand all of the taxes involved in doing business in that area based on your entity type. Local websites are starting to get better about being upfront with this information, but here in Pennsylvania, there are so many different municipalities with very specific rates and reporting dates based on the industry and entity type. So sometimes it's just better to pick up the phone and call. Depending on where they're located, the accountant and lawyer might be familiar with your area, but you should always double check to ensure that you understand what taxes you're required to pay. And if you find out it's more expensive to operate in the area, you should at least adjust your pricing going forward to account for those extra taxes. Payroll taxes are paid only if you have employees. You, as the business owner, are only allowed to pay yourself a W-2 payroll if you're set up as a C corporation or taxed as an S corporation. When employees or you as the owner of the corporation are paid on payroll, federal income taxes are withheld from the employee's paychecks and paid right to the IRS. But you as the employer are also responsible for 1/2 of the employee's Social Security and Medicare taxes. So as the employer, you're responsible for holding that money back from their paychecks, holding it for a few weeks or a month, and then paying it into the various taxing authorities. Now this is really important because it affects your employees. If you don't deposit the money you collected from them, then the IRS won't give them credit when they file their 1040 tax returns for the federal tax they thought they already paid in. This is why we always suggest having a payroll company involved and let them handle the collection and remittance of payroll taxes. Real estate taxes are paid if you own the property that you're using for the business. But often, this isn't the case for most businesses. Usually the real estate is held in a separate entity for liability protection, should something happen to the business, or the real estate, or both. Excise taxes are taxes on particular goods and services and activities. They're usually more specific than a general sales tax and are often paid by manufacturers, retailers, and consumers. These are most common at the federal and state level. So that list of 6 areas of tax that a business would likely be exposed to are the major areas you'll want to look into to ensure that you're covered. IRS and state are easy because tax professionals and lawyers deal with these areas all the time. But local filings are often tricky once you're out of the major cities. So make some phone calls, ask other business owners in the area, and make sure you understand the taxes involved in your business so that you can plan accordingly. And often, if you establish the business in other areas of the country, you're opening yourself up to new taxes that might be due that you didn't plan for. So this should be a big consideration when deciding to branch out or do business in another state. If you found this video helpful, we're real accountants and CPAs who work with hundreds of small business owners just like you every day. Check us out at engagecpas.com to see if we're a good fit for your business. We also have business courses available to help small business owners understand their business. They're for you to learn about your financials, your taxes, how to pick the right entity, tax myths, and everything else about your business. Learn at your own pace. Check those courses out on the Education tab on our website. You can also find us on Instagram at Engage CPAs.